Most guys who lift weights end up facing the same challenge at some point along their journey. They go all in on this mission to build muscle, but then over time, they end up accumulating a lot of fat, which ends up basically overshadowing the muscle that they work so hard to build in the first place. So what happens? Well, they end up diving headfirst into this world of counting calories, right? Which, by the laws of science, sounds like something that you should do. And in essence, in most cases, yes, right? You consume less calories than what your body's using, and it should put you into a calorie deficit to lose weight. But in the grand scheme of things, in my experience, like the guys who are obsessed with calories are usually the ones who end up struggling in the long term. Because when they obsess about counting those calories, they end up focusing on calories instead of nutrition. And my point here is that there is a hidden cost to playing that game, one that most guys don't understand. Because when you obsess over calories in place of nutrition, you might win the battle for a month, maybe a couple of months, maybe even a year, but you'll always lose the war. Whereas on the flip side, right? If you obsess about eating real food that comes from single source ingredients, then the calories end up just kind of taking care of themselves. Now, I'm not saying this happens in all instances, right? Because I know there is going to be some chubby troll who says you can't manage something without tracking it. And I get it. And I normally agree. But when you end up obsessing over calories so much, it ends up pulling you away from the broader need to think about what you're actually eating. Now, in reality, if most people are honest, that choice of eating good nutritional food is one that most guys want to avoid at all costs, right? Because they'd rather keep the options open for having the processed crap and binge eating within their diets. And what makes matters worse is that every personal trainer out there is telling them that it's possible to get lean and stay muscular if you just track your calories and eat your protein. And so that whole cycle, right, it leads them to being hardwired forever in finding a hack around the need to eat real food. Because nobody really wants to think about that opportunity cost, right? What is it? It's what you could be achieving by eating real food. They won't try it because most of the time, it's such a monumental shift in behavior to what we're all used to eating. And I promise you, take it from a guy who's been there time and time again. The guys who obsess about counting calories are usually the ones that have the poor nutritional intake, i.e. they like to eat crap. But the guys who think about nutrition as a prerequisite before counting calories, those are usually the ones who coincidentally master it and get the right number of calories. And so my point is that it's not a coincidence. It's just making good choices at the core, which has a ripple effect on everything else. And that often mitigates the need for you to calorie count everything. For example, if there is a choice out of a pack of nuts and a protein bar, even if this protein bar has less calories and more protein than the nuts, I can almost guarantee you that the guys who choose these mixed nuts, i.e. the real food, they're the ones who are going to end up getting leaner, fitter, stronger in the long term. Not by these, but by that choice, right? And that's because they're simply putting nutrition first. And if you don't know what nutritional food is by now, then just for the sake of this video, think about it as single ingredient, nutrient dense food. The stuff that's not mass produced in a factory, right? Now, if I say calorie counting is the reason why all guys can't lose fat, I'd probably get a lot of stick. And I get why, because it sounds like I'm challenging the laws of science, right? And to be crystal clear, you absolutely need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight, whether that's through eating shit, eating whole foods, or something in between, right? But if you're lifting weight and you're trying to promote muscle growth, then monitoring nutrition is always going to get you there faster and more effectively than counting calories. And if I'm honest, calorie counting kind of just ends up as this hacking tool, right? That most guys become obsessed with using because they want to literally have their cake and eat it. So think about it for a minute, right? We have a bunch of guys in the world who will literally use the calorie logic to justify whatever they want to eat because somehow in the moment they're going to make the maths work. And so I'll tie this into a term used by a guy called David Goggins, right? Most people know him, love him. Navy SEAL, motivational speaker and author. He often refers to something called the bitch voice. Now, I know that doesn't sound like the most eloquent way of saying something, right? But it basically refers to the voice that creeps in your head to justify your own bullshit to you in a way that is certain to convince you to do the opposite of what you basically need to do. And you know who loves the idea of counting calories? That same voice. Because counting calories gives that voice the perfect platform for you to start negotiating with yourself, right? And that's a battle that you will always lose, because when the donuts come out, or the chips come out, or the cakes come out, that's the voice that's going to come in to rationalize your choice with a calorie equation that is supposedly going to justify it and conveniently, right? And the problem is, once you get used to that, it's addictive, I promise you. It's almost impossible to stop it from happening again and again, especially when you're salivating and you're hungry at the junk food. And believe me, I know this because I've tried it myself, right? Every year I grappled with the bullshit of trying to lose fat and build muscle through calorie counting and having protein, when instead I just needed to stop eating bullshit foods with so many empty calories. So when you tell someone to stick to a calorie limit, it's kind of like saying you can spend your money on whatever you want as long as you stay within your budget. Like, what do you think most people are going to do? Most people will spend their money on bullshit because we're telling them to just stick to the budget. And that's exactly what an overemphasis on calories does, right? It's like giving someone this gold star for sticking to that budget, even though they spent it on booze, drugs, and gambling every single day. Now that might sound like good fun, but so does the idea of eating pizza, kebabs, and protein cookies to maintain a calorie deficit. Now on the other hand, imagine someone else sticks to the budget, right, that you give them. They spend it on things that's actually useful to them. Technically, they both have done what you've asked them to do, but the person who's generated value out of their budget, they're winning, and the other person has nothing to show for it. So at the end of the day, it simply comes down to two things, right? Creating a calorie deficit and the nutritional value of food. Both of those are necessary, but the nutrition piece is the non-negotiable prerequisite to a calorie deficit. And the problem is, somehow, in an effort to keep bullshit foods flowing, the food industry completely exploits the calorie angle because they can't say, this is good for you. But I tell you what they can say, this is only X number of calories. So let's run with an example. Let's take two guys. Both have exactly the same metabolism and body composition. You've got Bob and you've got Joe. Now both are given a 2,000 calorie limit per day in their allowance. Bob smashes it. He hits 1,500, right? Which is 500 calories in a deficit. Whereas Joe, he hits 2,100. That's a surplus of 100. So technically, if they both do that consistently for a month, Joe gains weight, Bob loses weight. But if we double click on that to look at what they actually ate, we might find out that Bob has spent 90% of his calories on bullshit foods and 10% on decent nutrition. But Joe, he might do the opposite. Joe has spent 90% of his calories on good nutritious food and 10% on some crap. Now, if Joe has a tendency to go over his allowance, even in that scenario, he's always going to be the long-term winner in this game. Why? Because Joe has mastered the tough bit, right? Getting him to tweak his calorie consumption is a lot easier than getting Bob to try to start eating nutritious food. Not only that, but even if Joe goes over his calorie allowance, he's reaping a shit ton of benefits in everything, like his cognitive, mental, and physical functions, right? He's probably sleeping better, growing muscle. So when it's all said and done, Joe's the guy who has the formula to win. And Bob, he'll still be making daily calculations to justify how much pizza he can eat every day. And that's why if you obsess over calories in place of nutrition, you're overlooking one of the most fundamental parts of body transformation. Whereas if you obsess over the type of food you're eating, you can easily tweak the amount to bring it back into your calorie allowance. What I'm saying is focus on eating foods that were meant for humans to eat as a prerequisite before you count your calories. That's job 1A. Then once you've unscrewed your mentality to what food is, then you can bring your calories back in to your allowance.